Hello and welcome to the SANE Show. This is April Perry and Jonathan Baylor, and we're so excited to do another mailbag. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm doing real well. I'm always excited to get a little bit of postal mail since the people don't use the postal mail. They don't use the postal mail, but the postal mail very much. Every time we go to our mailbox, once a week, and it's always like a little Christmas celebration. You sort through the junk mail, you throw it immediately in the garbage, and then you have like one or two wonderful there.
So funny. I know Eric loves the mail. He goes every day, and usually, yes, there's not as much fun stuff. But today we have some fun things, and we're going to be just talking about a variety of questions that people have had about SANE, and super excited. So 5 questions today. Number 1 is about leaky gut. Now, okay, I had never even heard of this before, but talking about leaky gut and food sensitivities. So first of all, can you explain just kind of what that is? And the question came in, how can we cater SANE out of the box to work towards healing that? So help us even understand what this is and why we should be concerned about it.
One of the most exciting areas of research that's happened in maybe the past 5 years in nutrition science has to do with the gut. So whether that's gut biome, whether that's gut dysregulation, we've kind of heard about hormones for a while, heard about things like exercise, but talking about your gut and your gut health, that's more, let's say, cutting edge. And because of that, because it's new, because it's cutting edge, it gets a lot of attention. And it is super important, right? We've always talked about how your set point is really the core of what your body is trying to do long-term in terms of your weight, and that it has 3 things that make it up, which is your mind, your hormones, and then your digestive system, or your endocrinology, your hormones, your neurobiology, your mind, and your gastroenterology, or your digestive system. Now, leaky gut is a popularized term for a constellation of digestive issues people have. It's really gained a lot of popularity in paleo circles because the original intention of the paleo diet was to help with autoimmune diseases such as leaky gut. Autoimmune just means your immune system starts attacking healthy cells rather than invader cells. So leaky gut is, again, think of it, it's your doctor won't ever diagnose you with leaky gut. It's not something like that. It's more a term used for a series of symptoms that gets discussed on the internet a lot. So leaky gut is, in short, caused by the same thing that every other medical problem is caused by. And that's eating processed, toxic starches, sweets, fats, and undergoing huge amounts of stress. Some people manifest that in terms of ulcers. Some people manifest that in terms of leaky gut. Some people manifest that in terms of obesity. Some people manifest that in terms of depression. But at the end of the day, they're all symptoms of putting things in our body that weren't designed to be in there.
Okay. And so as we just eat generally sane, is there anything we should be doing special or different as far as if we're concerned about this, or we've been having a lot of extra stress in our lives, or anything else you'd recommend? Or is SANE out of the box pretty much going to protect us from getting that?
SANE out of the box will absolutely protect you from getting these common maladies that we face today, whether it's heart disease, cancer, obesity, diabetes, or leaky gut. Now, if you have one of those, that's a different story. So there's prevention and then there's treatment. And if your number 1 goal, for example, is to burn fat, that's a different number 1 goal than solving leaky gut. And there are things, for example, that you can do to help with your digestion that may not be as helpful for fat loss. And there's things that may be helpful for fat loss that aren't as helpful with your digestion. So it's always key for us, and we've talked about this in previous shows, to figure out our priorities. SANE will help with just about everything, but yes, there are customizations that you can make to SANE or to any other lifestyle based on what your top health priority is.
Okay, awesome. And then another question that was asked said, would Jonathan recommend going lighter and more reps on weights to promote healing for a short period of time? Now, I don't know if this is with the leaky gut question. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but or even just in general, if you have an injury or something like that, do you recommend doing lighter, more reps for that?
Yes, this definitely doesn't have anything to do with leaky gut.
Okay. So I don't know. Jonathan might know.
So let me just sort of close on leaky gut real quick, and then I'll answer this one, which is, it is the key thing for everyone to understand is that oftentimes we look for the one thing that is going to solve all of our problems, the one guru who's going to teach us everything we need to know, the one book that's going to fix everything, the one person who's going to finally make us happy. And I think what a lot of us have found is, my wife is my best friend in the world. I love her more than any other human being I've ever met in my life. But if I expect her to be everything in my whole life, one person should just fulfill all my needs. That's a tough situation to put ourselves in. And the same thing applies with various eating protocols, right? If you're trying to deal with schizophrenia, like a ketogenic diet will probably be best for you. If you're trying to deal with severe depression, we'll do different things with omega-3 fatty acids. If you're trying to do things with leaky gut, there's going to be kind of seemingly random foods that are sane that you would exclude, and other foods that are sane, which you would focus more on because you're focused on this specific genre. So remember that SANE out of the box is a template that ensures long-term human health. If you have a specific medical condition, it is critical to work with your primary care physician to figure out which foods within SANE are the best for treating that specific ailment. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. I love that.
Right, now for the lighter weights.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. So let's say you are, I guess, having some pain. Maybe you pulled a muscle, something like that, or you couldn't do eccentric exercises with the heavier weights. What do you recommend?
You never, ever, ever want to do heavy resistance training or any form of exercise while you're injured. That is not a good idea. Okay. Unless a physical therapist is prescribing using, 2.5 pound dumbbells to help rehabilitate a rotator cuff or something along those lines. But this is another example of the mindset of let's wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and jog and force our body into weight loss. Like, we cannot force our body to heal. We don't, when we're injured, we're already stressed. We need to step back and allow our body to heal rather than putting additional stress on it. So any form of exercise when you're injured should be done under the prescription and tutelage of a physical therapist, not a personal trainer, a physical therapist, because you really want to avoid making things worse, which is super, super easy to do when it comes to exercise.
Okay, I'm going to add on another little question. This is just a personal question, but I'm guessing other people might be going through this. So you and I were talking a little bit before the call. Right now in my life is probably, like Eric and I were looking at our calendar and looking at what's happening in our family over these months. Some of it's emotional, like my mom's been declining a lot in her Alzheimer's. Some of it's just logistically, our family is just doing a whole lot of different activities, a lot going on. I mean, there's just a lot. Like, really, we're thinking out of our 18 years being married, this 5-month period of time is more intense than anything we've ever gone through together. So it's just a lot. And part of me is like, oh, come on, April, it's not that big of a deal. You're fine, But I'm noticing, like, I am stressed. Like, and some of it's good stress, but I am stressed. There's a lot that's been happening. So I've been trying to figure out, in the midst of juggling a whole lot of different details, how much to put myself, because I've really been wanting to do more exercise. Like, I did go to the gym yesterday. I did my eccentric exercises. I've been doing great with green smoothies, eating really healthfully. Like, I'm not eating any insane food. But as far as how before I was like taking SANE to the next level, I was just giving it my all. Right now, I'm totally just in maintenance mode, which is going well. Like, I feel great. My clothes fit. I'm healthy and strong, but I'm not like pushing myself, where in my head I feel like, oh, I should be doing more. I don't know. I always do this to myself. So what would be your recommendation? Let's say, like, you mentioned your wife, when she works with tax season, that's a big time for her. When you have a lot going on, do you ever find yourself going into like SANE maintenance mode? Or have you seen people around you doing that? Or what would you suggest is a healthy way to just think about it so you don't feel down on yourself for not increasing the weights every week, or really pushing yourself, or being optimum in every part of your life?
You're definitely not the only person that feels this way, April. I think this gets back to some of our earlier podcasts where we talk about it is literally impossible to be a 10 at everything. No one is an Olympic athlete and a Nobel Prize winner and gets Mother of the Year and has 4% body fat and writes New York Times best-selling books, right? If you do any one of those things, you're a superstar. So the thing we're always advocating here at SANE is what we call nutritional serenity. So we want to be sane because it facilitates us doing everything else. SANE is a means to an end, not an end in and of itself, right? It's just like you sleep so that you don't have to think about being tired during the day. Right. Sleep should be out of the way. So with SANE, it's not, unless you're trying to get on stage and be a fitness model, SANE is here to serve you and exercise is here to serve you. So to the extent that exercise causes additional stress rather than reducing stress, it's counterproductive. To the extent that SANE causes additional stress rather than making you feel better, it's counterproductive. Healthy things should make you feel better, not worse.
Yeah. Okay. Can we just discuss this question every podcast and you can just remind me? I'll just replay it. I don't know. I feel like that's something that's happening often is that, I mean, there's times where things are going really well and it's not a big deal. But I think that because there's so much in the media and so much with friends about how, you need to make yourself a priority. You need to make sure you're doing all the things you need to do, which I want to, but I feel like I am grateful that just being in maintenance mode, it doesn't stress me out anymore. I know I don't have to lose 10 pounds, in a couple of months. Like I can just stay how I am, which is great. And that helps me. Thank you.
And I think there's a key distinction, April, between what I'm not suggesting is that we sprint towards sanity for 3 weeks and then we go completely insane for 3 weeks and then we sprint towards sanity for 3 weeks. Like we don't want to do that, but we do have to say at some point, there is only so many areas of our life that can be a 10 out of 10. And if it's your busy season or if you're moving, you're focused on improving that area of your life right now. Yeah. And the other areas of your life, you don't want them to plummet ever.
Right. Right.
But you can, there's a big difference between maintaining good and prioritizing excellence above everything else. They're very different things.
Okay. I love that. All right. Next question. There's an article. I sent you the link to it, and it's talking about choosing protein for your smoothies. And the article is bringing up an idea that a lot of people are using protein powders and nut butters and things like that inside of smoothies. Now that smoothies are becoming meals, but the whole article is about not using protein powder because one of their biggest concerns was saying that says high protein processed foods contain potentially large amounts of MSG in the form of protein isolates. So basically, this article is just walking through explaining we only want to have whole foods, not utilizing any protein powders. Now, I know before we talked about, well, what's a whole food? Talking about like whey protein powders that are clean. Is there a way we can know if there's MSG in our protein powders, or what do you have to say on this?
Well, I haven't read the entire article. I can tell you that I probably agree with 90% of it just based on what I'm hearing here, which is that 90+% of protein powders or any sort of powder or any sort of, nowadays you can buy protein powder at Walmart, right? And it's totally common, mainstream. And unfortunately that means it's gone the way of everything else that's become mainstream. Quality has suffered. Additives have been added so that we can get it on shelves in Walmart. SANE doesn't have any products in Walmart. Maybe someday we will, but we'll keep the quality high if we do.
Okay.
But because of that, cost becomes a major issue. So yes, there's additives, there's myriad corners that get cut, and 99% of protein powders I would avoid like the plague. 99% of processed foods I would avoid like the plague. If you are going to take a protein powder, the only protein powders we recommend are clean protein powders. We provide 3 of them. Their ingredients are, wait for it, 100% grass-fed clean whey protein, period. There's nothing else in it. That's all that's in it. No flavoring, no MSG, no nonsense. And a great way to tell, or rice or pea or hemp protein that are the same, no additives. A great way to tell if a protein powder is going to have a chance of toxicity in it or not is read the ingredients list. If it's more than 1 item long, chances are some of those items very well may be toxic.
Okay.
And also, whole food is best always, period.
Okay.
But if you have to use a protein powder, just make sure it's clean and use it in the context of a smoothie. This sounds a little bit silly, but our protein powders at SANE taste terrible. Let me explain why that is. You think of even like flour. People, flour is delicious, right? Baked goods are delicious. Flour by itself is terrible. It's when you add it to things and use it in recipes that it becomes good. Protein powder should be thought of as an ingredient, not something you just drink with water, because to make protein powder, which tastes terrible, taste good, you have to add a bunch of nonsense to it. So the only time you should be eating protein powder is in the context of something like a smoothie or in the context of something like a SANE baked good, because you shouldn't be relying on the protein powder for taste. Because if you are, you're probably tasting MSG, and that's toxic and nasty.
Oh, okay. Got it. Now, this article also talks about adding collagen or gelatin to smoothies. Have you ever done that?
We add gelatin to smoothies all the time. It's a wonderful texture enhancer.
Okay, something I haven't tried yet. Awesome. Okay, next question. A friend of mine was going sane and says, I'm never full when I eat sanely. Why would that be? Or what would you say to someone who had that question?
There's a big distinction between feeling full and feeling satisfied. So both psychologically in terms of the way you feel, and also neurologically in terms of the way your brain works, and also the way your digestive system works. So feeling full is literally, I feel like there is a lot of food in my belly. So if you, for example, go to Costco and buy one of those big bags of spinach and just ate the entire bag, you would feel very full, but I can guarantee you wouldn't feel satisfied. Satisfied is the feeling you get oftentimes when you eat something that tastes creamy or rich. It usually comes from protein or fat, where you get that feeling of, even if you sometimes eat chocolate, you're like, all right, that I'm satisfied. I might not be full, like I can eat more food, but I feel satisfied. Or let's say you even eat a big meal. If you have a sweet tooth, chances are you won't feel satisfied until you eat something sweet. And another kind of, you should never ever do this, but there used to be a diet fad in the 80s where people would chew food and spit it out and not swallow it. And the reason that didn't catch on is because it was horribly unsatisfying. Because there's just something about swallowing food that makes it so much more satisfying. So it is very easy to feel full without feeling satisfied. It's very easy to feel satisfied without feeling full. And we want to do both. So here's what happens when you feel full without satisfied. If you don't eat protein or fat, or you don't eat enough protein and fat, you will feel full, but you will not feel satisfied.
Okay.
If
so,
you eat, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No. Okay. So let's say someone just ate a whole bunch of vegetables, some protein, some fat. They feel like, oh, I'm not really done. Then what would you suggest? What would you add? More protein?
Probably
first?
just more of what they just ate. They might just not be eating enough at that point. So it depends. If, for example, if you ate raw broccoli with boiled lean chicken breast and 4 almonds, I mean, you got nutrient dense protein, you have non-starchy vegetables, and you have whole food fats, but there's very little fat there. There's very little taste there. So richness of flavor, total amount of food, and the actual amount of fat and protein you're consuming matter.
Okay.
And so if you can go kind of more in the direction of higher, you've got to eat the vegetables for the feeling of fullness.
Yeah.
Vegetables make you feel full. Protein is right in the middle. It makes you feel both full and satisfied, both hormonally and physiologically in your stomach. And then fat is what causes you to, fat really doesn't fill you up, but it does give you that feeling of satiety. So that's how you want to combine those 3 things.
Okay. Now, I've been kind of interested because I was talking with 2 different people this month. One is like a personal trainer who does a lot of, weightlifting. One of them helps people, like mostly moms, with their diets. And as I was looking at what they're eating, like their meal plans, there was maybe 3 servings of vegetables in the whole day. Why do people not eat vegetables? I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out, like, why are there no vegetables in there?
Most people don't eat vegetables because it's difficult and because you can look great without eating vegetables. Let me unpack that for a second. So you can be, in fact, if you're getting ready for a fitness competition or a figure competition or a photo shoot, you should not eat vegetables because they're very high in fiber and they can cause your stomach to stick out slightly.
Oh, okay.
So most people who are either rigorous athletes or their physical appearance is their primary focus, again, that's their primary focus. You don't need to eat vegetables to see your abs. And in fact, if you want to look emaciated, eating vegetables is not a good idea because they're bulky and they're going to kind of sit in your stomach a little bit and they may cause your stomach to stick out a little bit. Sometimes people call it fiber belly. You could have 4% body fat and still have fiber belly.
Okay.
So that's why they're doing it. 1, it's just not easy to eat vegetables. And 2, you can have low body fat percentage without eating vegetables. So they're like, I don't like the taste of these and I can see my abs without eating them. So I'm not going to eat them.
Okay. Well, I'm really glad that we get to eat vegetables. I love them. Okay, two questions about exercise now. One is weights. So after I had my concussion a few months ago, I went way down on the weights again because I had a few months that I wasn't able to do anything. And then one thing that I'm noticing is like, okay, for example, and some of the arm weights that I'm doing, I can't go to the next level. Like when you turn the weights, I can't turn it to the next level and still do the 10 seconds of lowering for those eccentric exercises. So what do you do? And I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but what do you do if you want to go up to the next level, but it's impossible for you to do it? Do you spot yourself, like use the other hand to spot yourself? Or do you stay at the lower one and just try to hold it at, like the hardest part longer? Or we're waiting for your exercise video to come out.
It's closer to the second thing you mentioned. So there's 3 ways that you could increase the resistance of an exercise. One is to add more weight. And what you're describing is there are oftentimes weight machines where you can go from 30 to 40. You're like, okay, that's a 33% jump. That's a big jump. I can do 30, but I can't do 40.
Yeah.
So then the question comes, if I can't physically add weight, how can I get stronger so that someday I can lift that 40 pounds?
Yeah.
And the way we would do that is just as you described. You can use the speed of what you're doing is the easiest way. So instead of, for example, doing 6 reps at 10 seconds each, you would focus on doing maybe 8 reps at 10 seconds each or 6 reps at 12 seconds each to just tax the muscles further. And
I like that.
you can also, a lot of gyms and a lot of gym machines have these teeny 2.5 or 5 pound weights that you can sometimes add on top of the weight stack.
That. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity as well. So you can adjust the tempo, or you can adjust the resistance on the weight stack. The third thing that you can do is you can, as you mentioned, you can focus on the most difficult portion of the movement and make that even harder. So for example, for a bicep curl, the closer you get to fully extending your arm, the weaker you usually are. And if you're doing a squat, for example, to the very bottom of the squat that you're the weakest, and at the top of the squat, you're the strongest. So if the weight isn't challenging enough, but you can't yet go up to the next level, you would focus on the most difficult portion of the movement. You would do like what's called mini reps. That's not a technical term for it. They're called partial reps. But if you're doing arm curls, for example, you would do the bottom part of the arm curl, the most difficult part, maybe like once, twice, and then a full arm curl, and then once, twice, and then a full arm curl. They're called 1 1/4 reps, and those can also be a great option.
Okay. I love this. This is stuff that we never learned in high school.
That's definitely true.
So, all right. Awesome. And then last question with exercise. I was taking some online Pilates classes, and the instructor was saying, Pilates is safe. You can do it every day because we don't tear muscle fibers when you're doing Pilates. And I was super excited about that because I hadn't even considered that. So I don't really know much about. I know you tear muscle fibers when you're really doing eccentric exercises correctly. With Pilates, like, could you do that every day, even if you were doing eccentric exercises? Or what are your thoughts on that?
You can do any form of exercise that we would call low intensity can be done every day, because the definition of intensity from a muscle physiology perspective is the amount of damage or hypertrophy or hypertrophy, depending on who you ask, that you're causing the muscle fibers to undergo, which is tearing of the muscle fibers. So that's why walking, for example, you don't, I walked so much on Monday, I can't walk at all on Tuesday.
Yeah. Because
you haven't actually damaged the muscle fibers. Whereas if you do eccentric training on Monday and then try to do it again on Tuesday, it's physically impossible. So things like Tai Chi, yoga, stretching, Pilates, those can be done, and we actually encourage you to do them in addition to eccentric training. It's a little bit like a yin and a yang. You've got a very high intensity safe exercise, and then you have a very low intensity safe exercise. Okay,
because I'm really liking Pilates. I'm like, I think this could be my new thing, because I'm not allowed to rollerblade as much anymore after all my injuries. So Pilates, I think, could work. Okay, that's awesome. So I don't know if we have a really solid next action for this podcast besides just go enjoy being sane and it doesn't stress you out like all these other things do. But any other ideas you can come up with for a good next action?
Well, I actually like that action item you just said there, April, which is to remind yourself that everything we're doing in a health context is to make you healthier. And I know it sounds like I just said the same thing twice, but I didn't, right? If you're stressed out, that's not healthier. So we have to embrace and understand that anything we're doing for our health that causes us to feel stressed, that stress is actually worse for us than the thing we're trying to do is good for us. So that's the action. The action item is to uncover if there are healthy things in your life that are causing you stress and unpack that because they might be counterproductive.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you everyone for being here with us. Super excited that you're part of the SANE community. I am so grateful for everything Jonathan has taught me and grateful you could be here. So have a wonderful day and remember to stay sane.